All right, welcome Radio 2 part-timers for, 2025 to your Radio 223 year and course and subject, whatever it may be. My name's Chris, and I'll be your lecturer for the year. Please excuse, I did, so I'm just going to excuse this and disclaim this now that I will struggle slightly with my speech. I did have a stroke in the first week of this year, but I'm recovering fast. So just a little bit of patience and obviously understanding and make sure, yeah, like if you need anything, just reach out and just know exactly why it is that I might, like I say, I might like fumble over certain words and stuff, right? Okay, right. Again, welcome to the year. I don't want to make a big thing out of it, so like a big song and dance, but yeah, I'm looking forward to actually seeing you in person. And this week one is obviously dealing with the first three lessons in your syllabus. You can go find obviously the material up on Cole Campus. And then again, I've obviously created the group on WhatsApp with, as far as I understand, one student is in the class. And so it's just me and you, right? And I'll see you for contact class next week, Saturday, 9 to 1 o'clock. All right. So if we go with the first lesson, this is it's part one of five. We're going to start with researching the audience, right? And that comes from the reference to your textbook is obviously Next Level Radio, and that is chapter 11, page 410. Okay. As I move along and as I explain a little further and further, more on the subject material, the particular lesson material, we'll hop back and forth between some relevant and some cool YouTube videos that I know will add obviously some value to your learning. And then again, there is also added material that I've obviously forwarded to Grant, and he will upload to your Cole Campus page. Right. Okay. All right. Just obviously this is the module, radio broadcasting practice of his second year. I'm Chris Jordan. You can obviously get in contact with me, info@chrisjordanmedia.net, as well as on my cell phone, which you have access to through the WhatsApp group already. So I'm not going to, you have to repeat that right now. You have two textbooks that we are going to use as references throughout the year. Obviously, Next Level Radio and then Beyond Powerful Radio 2. Okay. With this particular lesson, as well as the next, I think four in particular, we are going to be looking at research, right, and analysis, and how basically we figure out what listeners' behaviors are, what they like, what they don't like. Why is it that our numbers on a station or at radio stations are going up or down or this or that? How we can make money and so on and so forth, right? But you can head off to the brc.org.za site, right? Obviously, there's the link right there. You can just like click on it within your own, obviously your own copy of this particular slide, right, presentation, and then go have a look at the site itself. Go and familiarize yourself with it, and go through maybe the frequently asked questions, just kind of more like fully understand what it is that we are speaking about. We are not going to go in depth with the research process. When I say that, you won't know, which is fine, which is good. Okay, and you'll know next year in your third year. We go to the fullest extent when it comes to obviously radio analysis or audience analysis, and we go the whole caboodle, right? So that's what I'm saying. In terms of a second year approach, we're going to start obviously focusing on the structure and the construct of research, and then we'll move on from there. Right? Okay. But anyway, good references to have a look at are listed over here. And targeting here, who's your listener in how to make great radio? These are things you can go look up. As far as so in terms of, I've been obviously provided with the material. If you do need me to go sources for you, I haven't got that. There wasn't provided for me, but I will go and I will source that for you should you need that, right? But don't worry, everything else, everything that you do need to know is in your textbooks and obviously within these presentations, right? Okay, so the introduction, we want to be able to just make sure in this lesson that you do, whether it is commercial or community or whatever else it is, PBS, and so on and so forth, there is a listener versus a client relationship that we as the station obviously sit in the middle and in between. I say, so that's two different things. In between kind of says that, listen, we're intertwined, which is more obviously it plays more of a relevance in how we deal with what the client wants and what the listener wants, and how we obviously integrate the two together. But obviously, then we are also above the two. So we're in a hierarchy level that is above the two, listeners and clients, and we need to obviously like foster a great relationship with either and or, right? Okay, to understand the audience stations and that and obviously the research that they do use, the most important aspect to bear in mind is obviously the source of the research, man. Like, like if you've gone through the process of researching and it's a bad process or it's a faulty process or it's like a limited process or a thin process, it just like it doesn't help you in any way, right, to make any business related decisions, right? When you go back to your station and say, okay, I'd like to maybe change the playlist, or I'd like to include more features, or I'd like to focus more on news, or definitely look at more human, human centered stories. So, as that is what the like this is what the audience wants, right? Or maybe I should actually let go of someone or maybe hire a new team. Okay. All research is designed and directed towards obviously certain goals that we will then do that. So you have that again in mind. I will rinse, cycle, and repeat a lot of information just to make sure that obviously it sinks in. And again, just know that in learning, you do not have to understand this moment, like what is going on. We learn in a process, right? So be able to obviously pay attention to all the theoretics that we go and then let it sink in. And then if you have questions, make sure that you let me obviously interact with you so we can clear that up and you can understand all the context and content properly, right? Radio stations are competing with podcasts. Yes, we are to a certain extent. Or when I say to a certain extent within certain contexts. Oh, I've got lots to say, lots to say. Anyway, I'll leave it for later. Internet streaming and music subscriptions, like for example, obviously like Apple and Spotify, etc. Right? Radio stations are under pressure to understand their audiences in detail. Okay. All right. So why do we need audience research? It's simple. Like we need to make business decisions. Like the radio station is a business. It's like anything else that aims to create revenue, that has employees, that has staff, that provides a service. And so we need to know in terms of who our clients are, which are, I mean, our clients and not our clients, our advertisers. Our first customer is the listener, right? So everything that we do and everything that we are and we decide to revolve around is around that listener, right? Focus directly on that listener. How do we better know them? Well, not by doing only a once upon a time research, process, but rather to regularly sit down and ask them to fill a couple of surveys out. A couple of hundred of surveys would be better because it's more accurate, right? Definitely look at demographics and make sure that we are using people within our target audience as well as defined by and directed by, as a directive, shall I say, by ICASA and our license itself as well. But for all those cool things, right? I mean, we have to know whether we need to play this music, that music, again, hire this person, that person. Maybe we should, again, maybe they want to hear maybe business news that we don't actually have maybe in the station should maybe create a feature or maybe a 1 hour show for. It depends, right? Whatever they say, we're going to take into consideration, not just also lose all our faith in what we know as obviously media and radio practitioners, right? Very important to also know that we know our medium, right? We also know it well enough to know how to construct it and to kind of mold, almost like kind of think of it like clay, make different models of different things, at different times because people want to see like a mold of a giraffe, and so we know how to make a giraffe or whatever it may be, right? We also know what's going on, but we can't be egotistical to assume that we know everything because we don't, right? Our audience changes every day, they change every year, they change every month, seasonally as well. Every year has certain seasons that people will behave or they will focus or they'll need or they'll want or they'll you understand, etc., certain things. And so we take that into consideration when we look at our numbers and how it is that we can fine tune our service, our product to them, right? When it is that it comes to changing what we need to, or like I said, just kind of like sharpening, what we have on radio or service them as a product or product that is a service to them, right? Okay, but the reasons for choosing a particular radio station and demographics profile of the audience are obviously the most important thing. Like, why do they want to listen to 947? Why do you want to listen to YFM? Why do you want to listen to Mix FM? Why do you want to listen? Well, Mix is no longer, no, it is a station. It just was taken over. There was a very cool thing. I say it's very cool just because I've actually never seen it in action for I've been doing radio forever. But there was like a hostile takeover. You must go just check out the whole mix thing anyway, sidebar. Right. Okay. Anyway, but each station to their own, like to their own audience and their own research and own facts and findings. Right. All right. So two types of research that we do, and we must do both when we use our focus groups, when we are trying to understand our audience, is qualitative and quantitative research. Think of the words quality and think of the word, like for example, think of the word quality and think of the word quantity, right? Okay. So with, let's say, quality, right? We would like to actually, we would like to know open-ended questions, right? We want to open a question up so that we can, let's say, what we can get in return is more of a quality response from each particular person within our focus groups, right? So these examples here are too basic for me, right? So, for example, like sex as a qualitative research, I would rather put it under quantitative because quantity is we want to work with numbers. So, for example, like how many times do you listen to, or which shows do you listen to, or like which products do you buy? And there's a list there, or what genres of music do you most prefer? Pick five or more. You understand? So I'm getting like a number of from my quantity, so quantity number, right? Okay, I'm going to get a sum of or an average or a something that I can interpret when I go and I obviously put this into a spreadsheet or some kind of like obviously like a research analysis program or app, whatever it may be, whatever we're using, right? And we can get some cool knowledge management or that we can base our choices on, right? Anyway, sidebar, right? I'm going to go back to quality, right? So with quality, for example, I would say which shows, it's an open-ended question, right? So which shows do you not like and give me a reason why. For example, which shows have you never listened to? Right. And tell me, well, is there a reason why? Are you busy? Like, again, because a focus group, a person actually, a person like a researcher must actually be standing there for qualitative research, particularly. So you can actually guide that particular participant in further detailed quality analysis. Oh man, sidebar, right? Okay. Anyway, so I would say that let's say I want to do some research on the breakfast, right? So I'll be like the breakfast held at this particular competition. What did you think? Like, what did make you excited? Did you enter? All of these things are something that I can base as follow-up questions to one basic open-ended question, right? So quality over versus or over. No, versus is better, not over, right? Versus quantity. Okay, all right. Let's go to the next one, right? So we want to always know who is listening to the best of our ability. There are many ways we could possibly track. One is obviously from the BRC reports, right? That each station and well, everyone is made public to the report every quarter in the year. So a quarter is obviously almost for maths now, 3 months, right? Right. Three, 6, 9, 12. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So every 3 months, there's going to be a diary, a quote unquote report. Actually, I'm no longer going to say diary, right? So a report that the BRC will release and say, very basic, right? And again, you'll see it in the additional notes, the supporting material that I will go through and have a look at for with you and for you, right, in upcoming lessons. Anyway, so you will only see in that report, like for example, say Metro FM, it will list pretty much every station in the country. If the station has also opted to be quantified, right? Uh, okay. So let's say it's Metro FM. We will show the last quarter, right? What the numbers were then versus this particular quarter, the latest quarter. So that a station can look at that, and this is only the beginning of understanding what is going on, right? Whether we up or we down with the numbers, and this is a big thing. Station managers will say, "Oh, I had a station manager who was so hypocritical." I'm not saying he was a bad person, but with this, he was hypocritical like most station managers are. They'll always say to you, listen, if you live by the numbers, you'll die by the numbers. In other words, so if you look at the numbers and go and panic, and now you're going to change things here, there, and everywhere based on a particular only one, let's say, quarter and a report, you see something's going on, and you're like the numbers have been going down for maybe 2 or 3 quarters, and you start reacting irrationally, right? To these things and start changing everything. In other words, you die by the numbers, right? Your product will die by the numbers. But the thing is, when those numbers do come in, stakeholders put pressure on the station manager, and the station manager with the program manager will put pressure down on the programming, on the entire process of the station. And so the thing is that there is an immediate like knee-jerk reaction to living and dying by the numbers. It's not a correct. The thing is that the oh, how can I say this, man? The idea of it is correct. So in other words, like, the sentiment for it is correct. You shouldn't like if you are a obviously an experienced station manager or program manager, and even down to the on-air staff who know the numbers because they'll have meetings with that station and program manager, right? They should know, listen, like I need to also understand human habits, like these listener habits. How well do I understand a human being at any one particular point? Should I look at things that are standing out, that are setting them off, that are this, that, or that? I need to also know, man, that I can't panic. I am a professional in this particular industry or medium, and I should also like act accordingly, right? Believe in, for example, let's say investments, like for example, creating a new team. And on a big show, so we say the big shows are the drive and the breakfast because of the numbers. The numbers are there predominantly because why you know this, a listener's lifestyle is based on like traffic in the morning and traffic in the afternoons. So more than likely, if they are a radio listener, someone that does like to listen to radio, likes a particular station, they'll switch them on and they will be there for about an hour and a half roundabout, right? Because commutes here, for example, here in Gauteng, take about that long, to get back and work at high traffic times, right? Or high congestion times, right? Anyway, so the thing is like that is predominant. I'm not saying the breakfast and the drive are, they are not, they do their work. Yeah, I must pause because I must use the right, I must say my thoughts must be clear and correct, right? It's not right to think that they are the best shows. They are, I'm saying, more than likely, they do have more than likely the stronger teams. But, for example, we might find that at certain stations, which is true, like a brunch show is much more popular than a breakfast show. It might have larger numbers, right? And that depends on obviously the audience and the presenter that is one obviously hosting the show, and obviously the listeners that are enjoying whatever it is that they are doing and whatever it is that they are doing at that particular time in their day, right? So, for example, maybe this station caters to, like maybe I would say a 35 and older, right? Which is more likely an audience who would play a station while they are working, so in the offices, etc., etc. Maybe like there's something being played at at shopping malls, So if you go, let's say to Sanson, you 10 to 1 are going to hear 947 being played everywhere or in most of the shops as well. And the thing is, when a shop's open during the day, so they will count also, or contribute also to that number of who is listening, etc., etc. So anyway, so I'm saying that those shows are the busiest, most definitely, right? I'm saying definitely across the board generally is the traffic, sorry, the drive and the breakfast teams. But we have to look at, so take the blind. I'm saying like a horseware blind. Like, what are they called? I said blinds, right? Or blind spots. I don't know, whatever it may be. Those things on the horse's eyes, right? So they can see in front of them. Just take those blinds off, and then try and look at also. I'm saying if you're looking at trying to analyze the station, and you as a manager, right? Want to be able to look at all your shows, pay attention to all your presenters, pay attention to all those audiences that only are maybe weekend followers, or I'm saying listeners, or only evening listeners. I'm carrying on too long here, right? Anyway, so there are common themes, like I say, for example, that appeal to all people. Like, for example, everyone might like a clean sheet. I don't know of anyone that particularly would like a sheet a sheet that's been okay. Not every day it must be now cleaned in the washing machine or whatever, but it should not. If it's dirty, like I'm quite sure all of us will say, yeah, okay, look, I'd actually prefer like a clean sheet, right? We all hate traffic. There's nobody in this world, unless they are psychos, right? That love traffic because they love it. Or for what? No, no, no one likes to queue in a line at a shopping mall, at a shop anywhere. Like when you go into full petrol, even when you go take out some money. No, we don't like queuing. Nothing, man. Okay, and we all get bored. So why do we give you these simple examples? Now we start to see how we can also find more things that are more relatable to our audiences, big audiences. I'm saying thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. Stations sometimes they often have millions of people listening to them, saying that particularly the commercial stations, right? And we want to know like what these people, I'm saying the audiences for each station have in common. So let's take it, like I say, from that perspective, right? So in this at this particular moment, so and you and me, because we are a one-on-one, right? I'm much older than you. Not much, yeah, I am much older than you. I'm like in my 40s, you're in your 20s, right? 10 to 1, we're gonna have a difference in our likes and dislikes of music, for example. So I am obviously within my era, I really enjoy like the old school R&B. the old school house, like old school pop, like this is my thing, right? But and I don't really enjoy most of the music that comes out these days. Not again because I'm old. It's just not, it doesn't do it for me. But for you, it might do it. It probably does. Like, and you have probably a lot of people that you can pinpoint. I'm saying artists and songs that you're going to be like, oh, these are like my top 20. Never mind my top five, right? Five most. So think of the other students or other people in your age group. In this case, let's make it a student that's going, to varsity. It doesn't have to be BMH, right? That is within, let's say, the range of 19 years old to about 25 years old. We're going to, let's say, focus on a Black African, so male or female, right, of different, obviously, cultures, whether it's isiZulu or if it's like a Sepedi, whatever, I'm going to group them all together because we're not looking at cultural like the PBS stations. So, for example, a PBS station, is like more Tuading or Ukhozi, etc. We're looking at more of a commercial vibe, right? And we're now trying to build up an understanding of this particular group of people, right? Okay. And what they think is most important in their lives. What's important in your life, right? What's important for you to get up in the morning? Five reasons. Could be one to obviously take a bath, have tea, you understand? Like sit down and play some music, definitely get to school, like, you get on time, maybe go to the gym. There's a lot of cool things that we can, I'll say cool as if I do actually. I'm a morning person. I think, yeah, there's some enough of us that are morning people. Get up in the morning and go. You're like, yeah, I feel better now, right? Okay. Anyway, there's different reasons, right? But we can go and find those reasons. Why is it important to you? Let me. If I find that, let's say, I'm just take for example, just the whole thing of fitness and gym, right? Or going for when I say fitness, I mean you go and you let's say run outside, you're an athlete, that type of stuff. You like fitness, you're health conscious, right? I can easily, in the morning, at some particular day on the breakfast show, I can have a health feature, a fitness feature. I can definitely look at, let's say, competitions that I can run in association with let's say, Planet Fitness, or I can give away like USN products, like again in a competition, or like I don't know, let's say vouchers to Woolworths. So I'm not saying with Woolworths has healthier food. I'm saying I could, let's say, target an organic supplier, food supplier, right? Or one of those really cool, when they pre-prep your meals for you, particularly more of an appealing service to gym members, right? That are on strict diets, etc. Yada 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 yada. We can do so much now based on only that one thing that we know about a listener. So I hope you understand what I mean in terms of us finding information, knowing more about the listeners. We ask the information, we know something about them, we use that information, we transfer it, or we, like I say, we translate that to something that we might do or we will do on radio that we know our listeners will appreciate and respond to, right? Anyway, we find commonalities, right? So it's there. So it is these themes that radio stations, excuse me, let me open up my mouth, so that radio stations focus on as their obviously expertise. Stories where people succeed despite the odds. We love that. Oh, we love that. We love that. We love hearing about people and good things. I'm saying that good things happening to people, no matter where you are and who you are. You must be a really grumpy person who might resent someone, let's say, that you don't even know, and they sharing a story on how they beat cancer or they got their first job after 10 years of unemployment, or that they're so happy that, let's say, like their own, I mean, they had their, I don't know, like a mother was not able to have kids, and she had, like this miracle kid, and it was a blessing, all this type of stuff. I'm saying we like to hear stuff like that, and we enjoy it. We enjoy it with them. Are empathetic. So it's all about interesting topics that obviously appeal to the majority of your audience. Okay. Listeners' behavior, right, obviously changes drastically every single year, never mind decade to decade, right? Okay, with the full swing of the digital age, right? The short concentration span of everybody, right? All of us we have now literally, obviously it's a habit thing. I get that. It's a habit, but the thing is, the way that we process or choose to process information or things around us, so never mind short concentration, I'm saying when we are like we're on our phones, we're going through YouTube, we're going through Snapchat or TikTok or whatever it is, it doesn't matter, right? That obviously leads to short concentration spans because there's too much stimulation, but also as a sidebar, I'm not going to get into it because I can go carry on forever. We actually have chosen the easier route, in going through, like obviously navigating through a day. If we don't have to focus much on anything, we don't have to actually give it much concern, right? Right. And this is actually a downfall and a weakness of our society, all of us, in this day and age, right? Because of the fact that we have and we live in a world that is full of information. So there's an information overflow, right? That is too much stimulation, right, for any one human being. So if you don't engage a listener, you're definitely going to lose them, whether it is on air or online, right? Okay. So obviously understanding your audience, teachers suggest that students absorb information in three ways, right? Auditory, so obviously you're hearing, right? Visually, you could be a visual person. I'm a visual person. I some of us, so I have a photographic memory, which helps me a lot when I'm trying to remember someone's name or when I'm trying to remember like details about a certain place. Um, photographic, right? I'm definitely a visual person. Like, let's say reading and hearing doesn't work well with me, right? So, and then a tactile, I'm not going to try and pronounce that at this very moment. Kinesthetic. Oh, well, there I went. I said I wasn't going to try. Kinesthetic, right? Touching, right? Tactile, touching, right? We obviously are not one or another, right? I would definitely include, like I say, alongside with, um, so we hear, we touch, we see, excuse me, oh, excuse me, and then there are other senses that are also just shared there along with that. Sorry, I'm just going to just get a drink of water. All right, I've got a bottle of water now. Fuck off, it'll be fine. All right. Okay, so anyway, the thing is that like we need to be able to also try and be able to engage with our listeners in various ways. Touching is very difficult. You would have to, and when I say touch and feel a product, you would probably think of something like at a shop, like let's say clothing. You want to see like what the fabric feels like, or a pillow, whatever it may be, or you want to see how strong, let's say, a chair is or a table, whatever it may be, right? But we can also, I say, quote unquote, touch a product, I'm saying like a station, if we are doing, let's say, an outside broadcast, we're going to go and see them in person. We literally go like like it's an immersive experience, and so will then heighten all our senses, right? And so obviously, like informational so infotainment, whatever, could be absorbed, and so on and so forth, right? Our goal is obviously to entertain, so use the auditory tool, right, like audio, in your on-air executions, and obviously use Facebook or any other, like I say, website, any other social media to support the visual side, right? So we don't go on air and do things like I've heard this so many times. It's silly, right? When and it happens over and over and over. When you have a presenter on air that is having a tattoo being made, right? And no one can see it. I'm saying like it's of no purpose. It's just it's silly, right? So, but they think it's interesting because they're going to interview this particular tattoo artist, right? And without, let's say, like a YouTube live or an IG live or a TikTok live, for people to go and see the whole, and it has to be entertaining, eh? You can't just watch some dude like or woman, I'm saying do that, right? Randomly just be what is it, putting a tattoo on? I don't know what the words are. They use the pen, right? Anyway, it doesn't matter, right? So that's boring, man. Like online, also people want engagement. So yes, okay, cool. You can interview them on air, but no one cares on air about the bzzz that's going on in the background. No one cares. No one cares, right? And about your response, genuinely, okay, because we've heard it before. We know how people are. They either are very sensitive to touch. I'm saying to you, for example, like having a tattoo. I've got about four of my own is not it's not a comfortable experience depending on where it is also where you have them, but it's all right. Hmm. It also doesn't make for any reason to put on air. Like I say, putting it online might be better because you want to be able to see this type of thing. All right, let me just carry on here. The next slide. Okay. All right, so understanding your audience, ask yourself how effective research could be, should be, or would be run in music radio versus talk radio. Right. So, what are the things that we're actually referring to here? Talk radio operates, obviously, as we know, in a very different way to the way that music radio does. One, for the biggest factor, right? Talk radio doesn't have music sweeps, right? Yes, we do have some specialty shows on weekends that do run, particularly, let's say maybe even up to late Friday evenings throughout the weekend. Let's say predominantly on Sundays and Saturday mornings. Yeah, but on weekends, right? You'll find some music shows there, but talk radio is so we'd have to ask completely different questions for a completely different product. Also, talk radio is assumed to be much more, so not serious. That's a terrible way of saying it, right? But it is a completely different product, right? For a completely different person that is interested in a completely different aspect of life. So you have listened to both music and talk, right? And at both times you've listened to them for a specific reason. You were in the mood for you were sick of hearing the same songs. Maybe you're not really enjoying that particular station. I'm saying, let's say the presents are boring and it's not funny. They think they're funny and you're tired of them. You want to actually go to something a little bit more I'm saying more informative and educational, whatever it may be. So you want to go listen to some peace and quiet, I'm saying, on talk radio, right? So you tune over there and you go enjoy that for a while. It's a lifestyle choice, right? As everything that a person does. If you're a shoe person, it's a lifestyle choice. You will spend money on shoes and you will look after your shoes and maybe have a pair of shoes of every brand, I don't know, that you like. It doesn't matter, right? It's a lifestyle choice, right? Some people drink milk, like milk and tea and coffee, and others don't, lifestyle choice. Talk radio, music radio, right? Think of the reasons as to why it is that you would, and you personally first would choose either or, right? And then think of the type of people that listen to both stations out there. What doesn't change though? What obviously gets people's attention, health and safety, these things are important to us, like emotional stories, so in other words, things that are relevant to our quote unquote heart. I mean, our heart is an actual organ, but you know what I mean, right? Okay. The pocketbook, so in other words, money, financial issues, financial implications, financial context, whatever it may be, right? And transformation, obviously giving a listener hope for the future, right? Some kind of relevance to how they can actually better their lives, right? So, research in radio involves demographic variables, as I said to you, for example, like Well, a demographic is an age, it's a race, it's sex, for example. We could get, down there it is there. Psychographic. I'm going to explain that in a moment, right? Geographic variable. Are you in Gauteng? Are you in, let's say, Pretoria East? Are you in, uh, what's in Joburg? Yo, like Soweto, whatever it may be. You understand? Those demographic that's part of geographic variables, right? And obviously, a variable is how big our footprint is. So, in other words, when ICASA gives you a license, you can only broadcast to a certain radius. So maybe it's only 10 kilometers, the radius, or 20, or 30, or 40, or 50, depending on what type of station it is, and obviously the license agreement, right? We look at the geographic variables. Is it metropolitan? Is it suburban? Is it urban, is it rural? All of these things. Behavioral variables, right? So, like, how does this person, like this particular target audience, behave, right? Are they more social? Are they more like they like introspection and they like empowerment? Are they business oriented? Like let's say what's entrepreneurs? Um, are they sociable on weekends, like on Saturdays and on Sundays, and more homely people, let's say during the week, different behaviors, like I say, fitness, mental well-being. It's all got to do with, let's say, your behavior, right? Psychographics, on the other hand, are, for example, like I work and I'm on air at 919, so 91.9 FM. So the station is based on a psychographic. So our listener or target audience is a target audience that genuinely is it wants and only wants to listen to content and presenters and music that makes them feel good, because our tagline is feel good anytime, right? So the psychographic is someone that actually doesn't enjoy people that are negative and negative things. And we're not saying that we don't talk about we talk about everything from politics to sports to whatever it may be, right? But the approach that we always give to the listener as a psychographic, right? I'm gonna tell you how that influences I'm saying the demographic of the person, right? In a moment, is that they want like a enriching, empowering, feel good experience when they listen to the station, right? Wonder if you can hear the rain. No, but it's raining anyway. So with the demographic now, okay, the demographic can now be anyone. So it could be white, Indian, Chinese, African, whatever it may be, right? Within our feeder area, which is Joburg, right? And these people could age between, let's say, more than likely, let's say 23, maybe 21, okay, all the way up to about, let's say, 40, right? Our biggest audience is in their 30s, right? And they are definitely metropolitan now. Definitely, they're into, let's say, for example, like tech ideas and health, and like very, very, very like I say, I'm gonna say, so cool, like 2025 competent. You understand? They like that type of thing. And so we make sure that we bring in a lot of this stuff. We have very detailed understanding, because every station does their own research as well, over and above what the BRC provides them with, to understand what our station, I mean, like, let's say what they drive, where they shop, everything, blah blah blah. But the psychographic is different to the demographic. All right. Anyway, okay, so live. Oh, there it is, right there. Okay, so I've gone through this. So let's just quickly read through this. Live by the numbers, die by the numbers. Let's try and talk about the statement from both the positive and negative approach station managers have when using it. Numbers have a way of getting under your skin. So, how accurate are they in South Africa? They are quite accurate, because before we had what was the name? Soft, right? So SARF, it wasn't that they didn't have the resources like the BRC took over SARF a long time ago to manage the, let's say, so audience research, television, lifestyle research, right? Television, lifestyle, and radio, for example, research that is conducted here in South Africa, right? Okay, and they are relatively accurate because what we do, what they do, I'm not part of the BRC, right? What they do is they take a large sample group, thousands of people, like about like between 30 and 40,000 people, to monitor. So what they do is they fill out diaries, of what they listen to, what they eat, what they drive, what TV programs they watch, blah 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 blah, and they do this right to a very obviously very a thorough diarized process, right? Which then is obviously then processed by the BRC and then obviously released quarterly, right? So that particular sample set, that 30 to 40,000 people, is then what is the word I'm actually look? It's flooded, right? So what it is, we flood the figures, right? And maybe I'm saying things that are going to come up in future lessons, but then I'll make it obviously much shorter in those, right? Okay, but anyway, we flood those numbers in accordance to the proportion of the density of that population and that demographic within that area. Very specific, right? Okay, so that we can get the correct um, guesstimation, quite a good, right? Accurate guesstimation of what our listeners like, what they are listening to, etc., etc. The BRC is the Broadcast Research Council of South Africa. Why are they important? Because of all the things that we just mentioned, right? Okay, they release data in Feb, in May, in August, and November, 4 quarters, right? Okay, they established the survey. They do an establishment survey, excuse me, in March and September. Um, so in particular, just to as a sidebar, not really important, right? Like they weren't able to conduct any kind of diaries because people were not allowed to be approached and you weren't allowed to contact, and people were very obviously scared. They were very what is the word? But anyway, the word scared, right? You understand? Like of being in closed rooms with people like that, like for example, like stuff. And so like they withheld, they put on pause the research over COVID, right? Anyway, and now we move from an LSM to an SEM, right? So that what an LSM did before was measured the audience according to the money that they earned, and the SEM. I now can't now remember what LSM stands for, but anyway, because it's an old concept and I'll put it out of my mind. But an SEM is a social economic measurement, right? In other words, how does this person, yes, earn their money, but how do they use it, right? And so we base it also on that. I'm not going to go this. You can have a read through it because, again, of all the COVID and the BRC research. There, and when you go to the actual site, you're going to go see if you go click on, there'll be obviously like a particular little clicker for radio, and you go see audience trends, and you can go click on the report. I will supply you with a report again, as said, right? And the report, it does not look like this, right? Okay, it's not look like this. The report will actually show each station with obviously the last quarter versus the newer quarter, right? Okay, so LSM versus SCM, right? So if we look now, for example, we'll be looking at things like an SCM, as I said to you, is how they spend their money. Do they have like built-in kitchen sinks? Do they have not a VCR? So that's a bit old, right? Okay, but did they have a DVD player? I have VCR. It's great, but I like antique stuff. Anyway, vacuum cleaner, TV sets, obviously like toilets that are inside the house versus outside the house. How many laptops or computers? How many cars do they have? Like how many garages does the house have? Like we start to then pinpoint. Let me pull this down here, right? Um, like different weights for each one of these things to be able to place these people in certain SEM categories, 1 to 10, SEM1, SEM2, SEM3, SEM4, SEM5, and so on and so forth. Right. Okay. So if we have a look here. All right. Shoo. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is just an excerpt from one of the, I don't know when it was. Maybe it was a while ago, 2 or 3 years ago. It doesn't matter. It's an excerpt, right, from one of the reports, the BRC reports, socio-economic measurement, right, the SEM. What is an SEM? An SEM depicts how South Africans live based on what they have access to in their own homes, right? The inputs, as we said there, from built-in kitchen sinks to motor cars, types of roof materials, home security services, everything, right? When we do the diaries, they'll look at this, right? It relies less on durables and more on household structures and community infrastructures. And the SEMs are an improved approach to segmentation, so which is relevant to South Africa, how different people live in different places, right? And how their lifestyle change or how they vary and in accordance to what station they listen to and what the station provides them with and why they do what they do in their everyday lives, right? 10 SEMs are available across the spectrum, right? From the bottom to the top of a CSM like here. So don't look at, let's say, LSMs anymore, right? Oof, they used to call it the fairy tale. That's a bit cruel, right? Versus now reality, right? Okay. So you would look at, let's say, population, area, language, province, education, work, all this done in that's why the diaries, I'm saying that the research takes so long, it's done quarterly and it's done thoroughly, right? And then you'll actually see just a variance within, let's say, it's a particular area, right? Particular area. And then we'd look at, let's say, numbers and how they differ, right? Okay. So to close up this lesson, I will start off with a video in the next lesson. Okay, right. I think I've carried on for too long in this one. So when doing research, some points to consider: there is no crystal ball. In other words, we can't tell the future. Agree? Right. So find out if the research that you require has been performed before and by someone else. And if not, obviously, like, and I prefer this, like, it doesn't matter if the research has been done before. It only matters in understanding patterns of evidence. So, what has changed from there to now? What was important then? What is important now? We need to understand, like, a pattern of, like I say, a pattern of evidence to understand how we can also then change and adapt, and then obviously, provide the service as I've said before. Compile data and then analyze and interpret the results in a manner that obviously properly supports business intelligence. So that means, in other words, information becomes knowledge only when you can. So knowledge is something you can take action on. It becomes three-dimensional, right? Business intelligence, knowledge provides for that intelligence, and it obviously provides for proper or accurate decision making. Last slide here. Don't get intimidated by the language of research. So tracking studies versus action studies can tell you which direction you should go in next. And don't worry, we'll go through all of this, like as we go through the lessons, right? Qualitative and quantitative, no, right? Things we have discussed before. Is it said correctly? Validity, right, of the research. Once again, excuse my impediments at the moment, right? Make sure your research data and findings are reliable. Context, obviously, is very important. So numbers are one thing, but why? Context very different, right? Can make what you see as facts fiction, right? Choose your sample set in a non-biased manner. And for homework, why is it not showing? There we go. Right. Answer the following questions, right? So go ask 5 people, right? To email you answers, right? To how many times a week they listen to radio, how long do they listen for, how many hours a week on average do they spend listening to radio? So this is all quantitative, right? How often do they listen to community radio stations? How often do they change the station? So you could say uh, rarely, so hardly ever, quite often, or very often, for example, to get a quantitative result. Your favorite format of a radio station? Is it adult contemporary? Is it contemporary hit radio? Is it alternative urban? Is it classic urban? Is it adult contemporary urban? Whatever it may be, right? Where do you do, excuse me, most of your radio listening? All right. I'm going to stop the share there. Stop the recording. I'll see you. I'm going to see you in next